All right, everyone in chat is telling me this is just concept art, so the journey to 4.0 is clearly a very long journey, and there's no high-speed rail to get there. So it's titled Interior Design. This is an Inside Star Citizen Journey to 4.0 special, and it's 13 minutes and 36 seconds long. Jared, what's wrong with you? You had every opportunity to let it go 1 second longer. Terrible.
This week, it's another Journey to 4.0 special, where we jump farther ahead and take a look at work scheduled to make its Persistent Universe debut in the upcoming 4.x branch of release. And this week, we're proud to bring Star Citizen art director Ian Leyland back to share with us a first look inside the buildings of Star Citizen's landing zones.
You cannot give me a hard time for having a React channel when all CIG does is show whenever they have no content, concept art. It's the same thing.
So building interiors is something we've always wanted to do, because of we've had cities in the game for a while. We have many cities, we have many buildings. Therefore, we could have many interiors. It's a perfect opportunity to put in a lot of play space. Now, with the players flying around these buildings, they've been largely urban landscapes, fairly uninteractable. We've done a few landing pads to get the players in and out there, but really the real good stuff was on the inside. So up until now, we've been on the outside wondering about the inside. And today we're going to talk about...
I think they've already sort of started. We have the building interiors here at Crusader with, the guys who did Siege of Orson. So we, multiple floors and all sorts of different things on each level. And so we've sort of got it already. And I think that's what's so funny about this concept is I don't expect it to differ much from what we have already, right? We already have it, and they're talking about like it doesn't exist, which is hilarious to me.
The inside, looking outside. All right, so we're building interiors, and the way in which we approach the concept development. Now, this was just a pure blue sky ideation phase, and the idea was to create inspirational material to use that as a content to inspire conversations, to find out what do we want to do for the game, what is cool for the game, and use that as the initial.
Why isn't the game design the thing that inspires the art in this game? It drives me insane.
Springboard for the conversation. So what we'll be looking through here is...
The only conversation that should be had is what are we doing here? Make it look cool. But I'm so game focused.
It's a presentation of blue sky ideation, primarily used as a springboard to start conversations with Chris, with the design director, and the game director, to understand what do we want to put in the game? What could be cool for the game? And we use that as that initial inspiration point.
Okay, fine. Right? Because art might create something in the designer's head that goes, ooh, well then I can maybe do this. So, all right, fine.
So when we're talking about building interiors, how could we start to break that down? So right off the bat on the top, it's the rooftop spaces. So these would be the primary access points for the player. Then just below that, the maintenance spaces, these could be industrial or technical. Also, we can have residential. So residential could be entire building blocks, so it could be a proportion. Then after that, we've got commercial. So these could be shopping, it could be offices, it could be social. And then at the bottom, obviously, we've got lobbies. Now, these also could be access points for the player. For example, if you're inside Area 18, the player can get access to it there. And then lastly, we've got the underground. Now, these could be interesting as a connector space between buildings. So maybe you've gone in through one building, you go down.
I think the only thing that's sort of a surprise there to me is the underground part where it might connect to some sort of transit to get to like the starport. And then when you really think about it, if there's going to be apartment spaces there, obviously that would be a thing. So no surprise there, really.
Down, and it could bring you through to another part of the building.
Nothing there
Let's
is a
start with
crazy
rooftops.
concept.
Now, up until now, we've largely designed our cityscapes to be more of a backdrop to the landing zone. We have the social space generally in the middle, and then the cityscape goes around it. And they've been designed to give the best composition, to be interesting to fly around, but we've not...
Okay, concept art, fine. Where is this? ArcCorp? It's sort of ArcCorp style. Yeah, maybe.
Be interesting to fly around, but we've not really thought about designing these buildings from the inside out. So what we're looking at here is some potential concepts for what could be interesting landing spaces that drives the architecture of the building. With landing pads, it doesn't necessarily need to be on the top of the building. It could be, halfway down or lower.
Yeah.
So imagine, you're in the lower parts of the city, and then we'd open up these additional play spaces. And as you can see here, it's not just the landing pad, it's the gameplay space that goes along with it too. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be a single building. Imagine there is a network hub that services a few different buildings. So what we're looking at here is maybe like a transit hub where the player could land, get on some transit, and then that would lead to some buildings. Okay, so
as someone who's still like learning how they make games, right, as we all are, now I'm understanding more of why doing these things could help inform everything. Like that transit hub thing is kind of interesting in like, all right, you land your ships here, this is your parking garage, and then you'll go into your apartment or do your missions or whatever.
The maintenance spaces, so these could be really interesting in terms
because just leaving your ship on a rooftop that's supposed to service many people is kind of weird, right?
Of player interaction. They could be dealing with the power or the maintenance of the building. And then also you could have technical spaces. So these would be more for technicians. It could deal with the data or the communications. And what we're looking at here is potential some gameplay puzzles where the player has to work their way inside the main operation booth. So moving on to residential. So there's a huge amount of potential here.
Do we have any potential counters in chat? We have a could counter. Anyone want to work on potential? I've heard that at least 4 times. We could start with 4. This is something that I am excited about. Is I do think we need apartments. I think we need places to put our stuff. I think we need places to call home. And to be able to call a planet home. Because we have home planets now, but it doesn't feel that way, right?
What we wanted to do with residential is 2 things. One, explore investigating the potential player housing. So with that, we want to be able to create a variety of interior layouts. And also we want to explore a variety of architectural styles. So when we're looking at potential housing layouts, we wanted something fairly modular in a way in which we could create a variety of combinations. So whether it's living spaces or habitation spaces or social spaces. And also here we want the players to eventually be able to populate the player-owned habitation. So you see here like a first indication of how, the sort of dressing styles that you'd be able to do. Outside of something that's fairly utilitarian, we also want to do something that could be fairly high-end. So here we're just exploring some ideas about what a space could feel like on a different architectural style, and more generous windows, interior spaces dedicated to more than just habitation. And these would be focused on other landing zones. So imagine you come across these in Area 18, or it could be when we come to Terra. And also, like I said, it could be informing future player-owned habitation architectural sets. Now, outside of the living quarters, there's also the social spaces just outside. And we want these to be more than just the corridors that we're seeing in the game right now. So these could be multi-layered social spaces, and these could.
I mean, Jesus Christ, they look like they tried to do it at Hurston and just never built upon it, right? So where you wake up in Hurston, there's like a food stand and I think like a pool table and things like that, but you never can interact with anything. So what was the point in the first place?
Also inform advanced traversal routes for the player to be able to get inside these habitation rooms. So as we're talking through various architectural styles, what you're seeing here is just a collection of ideas, a collection of architectural intent to create like a palette or a mood that will inform art style and gameplay opportunities.
Yeah, and I don't know, like Lars said in chat, I mean, one of the things that excited me the most about Ultima Online, that like I played Ultima Online and I was into it when I first started, and when I heard about player housing and the fact that, you know, you have this empty space and then you fill it with things that are useful to you and things that are, you know, are visually pleasing, it was so exciting to me. And the fact that there was a real estate market and all these things, and you chose the house style, but then you decorated it the way that you wanted to, and people got very creative with that. But then they made custom housing too, which was also very cool. CIG will not give us the customizability that I would love to see. But hopefully we do get that, the ability to decorate significantly, because the architecture will not be on us. It's going to be on them, but you have to give us the tools to decorate as much as possible.
So outside of residential, we're moving into the commercial area. So what this means is it means we can look at areas that are more gameplay focused outside of player habitation. So when we're talking about these could be office blocks, these could be corporate owned. Inside here, there could be corporate wings, there could be manufacturing, there could be office spaces. And what we try to think about with these, it's more than just a flat room. There should be advanced traversal, it should be multi-tiered. So outside of the commercial offices, we've also got like restaurants and bars. So what we're looking at here is a pretty cool like skyline bar in Lowville. That could be fun. But also in restaurants, Chris always described the idea of really high-end restaurants in the game where you can get access to food choices that isn't available anywhere else. So right at the foot of the building, we're going to start talking about the lobby. So as I said before, these are going to be access points to the player, but also we can do more than just a standard foyer that we're seeing in the game right now. So this sort of space we're seeing here is, imagine there's an underground transit network, and that transit station feeds a network of building lobbies. So these could be social spaces, these could be really good combat spaces. They could have access to mini restaurants or bars or facilities.
It's just like America. Malls are great combat spaces.
And we're just showing that in a variety of art styles. So one's a fairly low end, one could be fairly high end, but the infrastructure is the same. So as we're exploring...
Look top left at what? Trying to look at the locations because it might be back a little bit. What are we looking at? You fucking broke it for me. God damn it. I'm never stopping again. It's literally broken. What is this? What the heck? What is YouTube doing? Look at it. It's like freaking out too. I could download it, but it'll only be 1080p. YouTube weird caching got to refresh. I literally just refreshed. You just saw it happen. What the heck?
This week, it's another Journey to 4.0 special.
Look, it's not even... This is so silly. Let's find where we were. Right about there.
Social spaces, these could be really good combat spaces. They could have access to mini restaurants or bars or facilities. And we're just showing that in a variety of art styles. So one's a fairly low end.
Oh, I saw
one could be fairly high end, but the infrastructure is the same. So as we're exploring art style opportunities,
for something
this then drives
pointless.
where it would be appropriate. So some would be more appropriate in someone like Area 18. Some would be more appropriate in someone like Horizon. And obviously some would be more appropriate for future landing zones like Odessa or Prime. And also when we're talking about lobbies, again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to describe multi-layer traversal spaces. So in these illustrations, you're seeing a variety of routes to then help inform the initial conversation with level design. Now, finally, we're going to talk about the underground. Now, this is, I think, one of the coolest spaces. So rather than just focusing on the positive axis of the building, we're going to look at the underground. Now, what this does, it means we can access a whole area of play space that doesn't need to be contained inside the building. So within a lobby, we want the player to start to traverse down into these spaces, and these could be underground transit networks. They could be abandoned underground transit networks. This then could drive potential racing opportunities. So when we was doing this, we thought, it'd be really cool.
Without talking about racing?
What would it look like if
Honestly.
there's an underground street race going on there? Also, there could be traversal opportunities. Like I said before, if the player wanted to go into one building, down, and then through, and then up into another building, what would that traversal network be like? Especially if we're thinking about if it's an older part of the underground of a city, maybe it's less used, people have built up. That would instantly inspire a whole bunch of traversal and investigation missions there. Or maybe there's an old aqueduct or an old infrastructure underground. This could be perfect for underground street racing or other racing opportunities. So in a nutshell, what we looked at is a blue sky investigation into what building interiors could be like for the game. These are essentially dungeon kits. We want to be able to work on these areas in a fairly procedural manner. And we want these to be dungeon opportunities for gameplay spaces. It also will start to inform the future of player-owned habitation and the type of visuals or look and feels that could be. So this ties into a much larger initiative. So we're seeing it a little bit now with the redo of Lowville.
Talk to me.
That's turning into a much bigger cityscape. And what that means is every city in the game is ready for these building interior spaces. Now, one thing to note is the cityscapes are probably going to change a little bit.
Yeah.
Just from an initial investigation, we found our buildings are quite small. So expect to see the skylines go through a period of transition, but that's cool because that means we're designing the inside of the buildings and then we'll redo the architecture to fit to that. So I think it's going to be super positive for the game. So just in case we was thinking it's all just blue sky concept, actually we're going to start full production on these spaces right at the end of this quarter.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. But in Loreville, or do they mean in all the spaces that they're showing? So, okay. That was my
So, what did we
favorite
learn
art.
this week? Well, we learned that much like the new underground facilities we showcased before, building interiors will be a new series of modular set pieces,
one
enabling a
behind him
whole
is my
host
favorite.
of gameplay opportunities, from trade to exploration to combat and PvP and much more. And that, much like those new UGFs, they're going into production now, and in fact, by the time this airs, will already have started. And that the journey to 4.0 may have Pyro at its center, but it will still continue to evolve all aspects of Star Citizen and the existing persistent universe around it. Now, we'll be back with more Inside Star Citizen next week. But for our Journey to 4.0, I'm Jared Huckabee, and we'll be back in about a month or so with our next big look forward. See you then.
I still just think that it would be much cooler to do this Journey to 4.0 content when Jared is off for 3 weeks, right? So every quarter when they just completely take off, I don't know the process. I don't know exactly why they take as much time as they do each quarter. It does seem to not bother the developers, but these things sort of appear to be done incredibly far in advance. So the idea of having those available for the time off, so we're never really just like without content, would be pretty cool. But I did not think this was as bad as many of you that I noticed from the comments did, because of where they are at the end. Is the difference between the way this felt 10 years ago and the way this feels now is, look at Montreal derelicts, look at Montreal derelict outposts, I think they were called. We saw concept art, and then it was turned into the game quite quickly. I don't believe we'll see this as quickly because of how big of an initiative this probably is. But it does appear that it's concept art directly into game development instead of concept art that sells you on what the game, hilariously could be, right? So that's, I feel like, what the difference is now and why this doesn't feel so bad. It's just the Journey to 4.0 thing is, ridiculous at this point. But besides that, it does appear that, this stuff goes directly into game development. So I don't think it's as bad as everyone's making it out to be. It's quite cool. And the fact that they're selling, listen, there's not many things I've wanted more than player housing. So them saying it is a something that excites me, but I know better than that's bait. That's bait. That is the old days type stuff of, and maybe one day it'll turn into player housing, and it's like, yeah, okay, buddy.